20 years ago, a man called Andrew Ivanov left his native Russia to settle in South China's Hainan province. Since that time, many of his fellow Russians have followed suit and also moved to the place which has been dubbed China's Hawaii.
Andrew Ivanov first came to Hainan in the 1990s. He was one of the first tourists from Russia to visit the South Chinese province. 20 years later, he's still here. Only now he's not a tourist, but the General Counsel of the Hainan Pearl River Travel Service. Over the past 2 decades, Andrew has made great progress in promoting tourism cooperation between Hainan and Russia. He's become known as the civil diplomat between the two places. When he first arrived in Hainan in 1994, the city was still largely underdeveloped. However, Andrew fell in love with the natural beauty of the place and soon decided that this was the place where he would settle down.
Sanya is very beautiful. I love the fresh air here. Compared with Harbin, Dalian, Fuzhou and other places in China, I love Sanya most. There is also a great focus on environmental protection across the city.
After he decided to make Sanya his home all those many years ago, he first found work as a translator. However, after the company he worked for went bankrupt, he had to find a new way to earn a living.
Because the company closed down, I didn't receive any annual salary. I didn't have any money to live, but I knew that I didn't want to leave Sanya. I just wanted to stay put.
So Andrew came up with the idea of organising tourism around the city. He figured that because he loved Sanya so much, other Russians would too appreciate the wonderful city. But for many people outside of China, Sanya was still unheard of. Andrew decided that before he could make his tourist guide idea work, he would have to better promote the city.
I used to work as a guide in Moscow, and I would meet many Chinese tourists. So I was already familiar with the tourism industry. I came up with an itinerary and contacted a friend in Moscow. He told me about a tourism fair, so I put some materials together and went to the fair. Everything was handwritten and very basic, so many people were intrigued.
Andrew's efforts paid off, and the first chartered airplane was soon flying from Siberia to Sanya, bringing more than 100 Russian tourists to the sunny city. At that time, Andrew had only 4 translators to assist with the organisation of the tourists.
We had just 4 people working to help those tourists, so it was hard. During those 10 days that they were in Sanya, we hardly slept. We were constantly bustling around helping solve all kinds of problems. Sometimes the tourists would get too drunk, while others would be getting lost. In the end, we overcame all the issues.
By 1998, Andrew and his wife had set up their own branch agency, which they called the Hainan Pearl River Travel Service. After that, Andrew saw his business go from strength to strength. This was dampened only when SARS hit China in 2003. That year, tourism in China was severely affected. Most hotels closed, so any tourists who did plan to visit Sanya were unable to find places to stay. During that period, a number of local tourism agencies went out of business.
Many hotels and travel agencies closed down. I asked the manager of our company for a holiday, and like many Russians, I flew back to Russia. Fortunately, some of my Russian friends stayed, and they would dine in my restaurants. So my company managed to survive SARS this way.
Despite the setback, Andrew remained determined to continue to promote tourism in Hainan. He was the one who translated the first brochure for Hainan tourism into Russian. And in March 2005, Andrew attended the first tourism resources promotion meeting for Sanya and Hainan in Russia. He later promoted Hainan tourism in Moscow and St. Petersburg, and the Chinese province soon saw an influx of Russian tourists flooding in.
The chartered airplanes opened in 2005, marking a new beginning for Sanya's tourism industry. Now there are chartered flights every 10 days. As a result, the tourism in Sanya over the past few years has developed quickly.
With Andrew's help, Transaero Airlines in Russia introduced a regular chartered route between Moscow and Sanya, which marks the first tourism chartered route between Hainan and Russia. Later, St. Petersburg, Yekaterinburg, New Siberia and many other cities opened direct flights to Sanya. Statistics show that the number of Russian tourists to Sanya increased from 10,295 in 2004 to 189,556 in 2012. To honour Andrei's contribution to the tourism industry in Hainan, he was awarded with the National Friendship Award in 2009, the same year that China celebrated its 60th National Day.
I felt very honoured to receive the award in such a special year. I have so many more great plans for the future.
Andrew is now planning to continue to develop and promote Sanya's tourism brand. He's also trying his best to cultivate more Russian guides to work in Sanya and encourage more multi-destination tourism routes between Hainan and Russia.